and welcome to our He, She, They Have Their Say around protected characteristics. So on this session we're going to be talking about race as a protected characteristic, and I'm joined today by Tajinder. Thank you for joining me, Tajinder.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off, Tajinder, by just asking you what your interpretation is around discrimination and race as a protected characteristic.
I think for me discrimination is when people mistreat others because they're different based on their nationality, ethnic origin, their culture, or differences in their culture.
Thank you. And do you think that discrimination is always intentional? Do you think that discrimination could be the misinterpretation or the misuse of certain language or words? Could that be classed as discrimination?
I think for me, discrimination is about intention. And I think sometimes it's important for us to educate ourselves about others around us as well and their cultures. And I think that can break down a lot of the sort of fears around discrimination, because sometimes if you don't know and you make a comment about someone's culture or something that you might have heard stereotypically, that person can take it the wrong way. You might just be saying what you know, but sometimes it's better for us to be more mindful and think, let's go away, let's get our facts straight, let's really learn about someone else's culture before we make a comment on them. Or even better, ask them. If you're not sure about something, ask.
So can you think of a time when either you yourself or somebody that's close to you has faced discrimination based on their race?
Yes, so there's been quite a few experiences that I've been privy to where I've seen kind of my dad, who's a sole trader, being discriminated against because of his appearance or because of his name, to the point that I remember that my dad changed his name. So his name is Gurnal Singh, but he would identify himself as Ken, and his work did increase based on the fact that he identified himself as Ken. And what would often happen is people would call him based on his name being Ken, and then they would answer the phone and he sounds like me. He sounds very strong British. I mean, his is a lot more Cockney accent. So he sounds like a British person. You wouldn't know what his ethnicity is. And sometimes what would happen is when people saw him, when they were asking for a quote and they'd see him, they'd either assume it's not him, they would be really shocked and make comments like, oh, I didn't expect you to look that way. And I would witness this because his office was my home. So we would often kind of be privy to that. So I did see it in that sense. I've also seen him not get work because of the way that he looked. And in my case, I think it was more around my name. So I had a number of situations where people felt really, where I was, especially so I had my first job in social care, and in that time I had met my new boss and I was keen to impress, and so they introduced themselves to me. I introduced myself as Tajinder, and the first comment that I was met with was, oh no, haven't you got a shorter name? I can't possibly say that. And because I had seen my own dad shorten his name to make it easier, I don't know, in my mind I just thought maybe that's normal and that's okay, and I don't want to make things difficult for anybody, and so I had just shortened it. And it wasn't until I was much older, much wiser, I had my baby, and I had gone to I was on maternity leave, and I'd gone to like a mother and baby sort of session, and a friend of mine there, at the time I didn't know her, and she introduced herself. I introduced myself as TJ, and she said, no, that's not your name, what is your name? And then she went on to say, well, we can say names a lot harder than yours. When we're learning about the Nazi war, we learn to say a lot more difficult names than yours. So why can't we try to say your name as it is? And I thought, oh my gosh, here there is an English lady telling me that she can say my name and that I shouldn't be shortening it. What am I doing? So when I had then gone back to work 6 months later, I had met with my boss. I felt this real sense of uncomfortableness to actually address this with them. And I sort of said to him, oh, do you know, I'd like to be called Taljinder. And he said, oh no, I'm not doing that. It was just like, no, it's not. And he said, no, I'm not doing that. And I was made to feel like I was making a big deal out of nothing. And I think for me, that was really like, I felt a sense of uncomfortableness, which I can only say was what I would have felt discrimination felt like. You know, that's what it felt like.
Well, that would be discrimination. As you said, that intent, you had said to him, actually, my name is Taljinder. I want you to call me, not I want you to call me Taljinder. That is my name. And for him then to say, no, I'm not doing that, then that would be classed as discrimination within the workplace. So since you've been with Active Prospects, Taljinder, would you say that you've experienced any form of discrimination within Active Prospects based on race as a protected characteristic?
No, none at all. I mean, Active Prospects is amazing. I've had some really positive experiences. Since coming here, I've only introduced myself as Taljinder, and I've not had anybody, I don't think not even one person, people we support included, who have stopped me in my tracks and asked for a shorter name. More often, you know, people will ask me to say it a few times, but you know, everybody makes an effort. It has been a really beautiful journey so far.
Well, thank you very much, Taljinder, for joining me. Thank you very much, guys. That is the end of our session around race as a protected characteristic. We look forward to seeing you next time.